I was always an A-B student. That was very normal for me. Anything less than that, it wasn't wrong, but it was encouraged to continue that. And when I was in the honors program, I took an honors course where we had a term paper, and I flunked the term paper completely and totally, F all the way, which was a big shock to the system. And I went through the stages of grief with that and trying to comprehend how I could fail a paper. And then I went and talked to the professor later and got an understanding of how the paper was supposed to be structured and how I misinterpreted that structure and used that as a learning tool. And so it kind of always stuck with me to not expect to win everything, but to take those failures and learn from them. Dr. Diane Leggett, who at the time was the chair of the Family Consumer Sciences Department.
Okay.
And then she was also the instructor for the historical costume course.
Okay.
And within the first week of that class, and we're going over the syllabus, and one of the main requirements in that was that you had to do research in the small collection at the Burial Building in historic costume. And then she kind of paused and said, or I've got this exhibition that I'm helping set up in Frankfurt in a few weeks, and you could do this and help me set this exhibition up instead. So I went with a few students, and we went up to Frankfurt and set up this exhibition of historic costume that ranged from the early 19th century up through the early 20th century. And it changed my life. That was the moment I was working with a dress that was worn in the 1820s, and just fell in love. It was that moment that said, this is something interesting. This is something that I had never thought of before. So I worked with Diane throughout my college career. I did independent study with her in collections management, and then she also encouraged me to do a museum internship apart from the design internship I had done in New York. And so I worked with the Kentucky Historical Society. And one of the other mentors I've had, which is related, not actually a staff member at EKU, but at the Historical Society, that internship proved to have a mentor that has stuck with me, and we've been friends and colleagues for the past 10 years, and ended up getting to work with her again years later. So one of my favorite classes was actually not in my major. I took, as part of the honors program, an honors elective that was, I believe it was titled Opera as a Cultural Drama, taught by Dr. Neil Wright. And it was basically a history of opera and a opera appreciation course. So not singing any opera, but learning about it, hearing it. It was the first time I ever got to see a live performance of opera, as we did a field trip to Louisville, and it has made a lifelong love of opera for me, and I now go to opera as frequently as I can. Susan Kipp, and she is kind of the foundation of the department. She is the full-time staff member, so I took multiple classes from her and learned from her, and it also helped that I went to school with some of her children, so I knew that family growing up, and so it was a great opportunity to get to know her in that setting and get to work with her doing various design and pattern making and skills that I still use today. So I'm actually going to kind of use a favorite class as my favorite moment, because even though it wasn't a single moment, it was something that took me back to my childhood, and that was when I took paleontology with Dr. Malcolm Frisbee.
Okay.
And I was a child when the movie Jurassic Park came out, and I fell in love with dinosaurs, and from that moment on, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Just for 6 years later, following that movie, I wanted to be a paleontologist. And life happens, and I found fashion design and fashion history, and that's the way my career went. But when I needed to take a science elective, I saw that course, and I said, oh, I've got to take this course. I've got to relive that. and I was a kid in a candy store that entire time. I loved learning about dinosaurs. I still have the textbook on my bookshelf and I still look back at it every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I still watch shows all about dinosaurs. And it was just a fun moment that I never thought I would get.
Yeah.
And it's something that's been still a lifelong love of mine. I still see research. And actually one of the most fun moments with that was in grad school. One of the professors that I had was one of the authors of some research that we had read in Dr. Frisbee's course.
Okay.
So I got to meet one of the authors
Okay.
who had written these books on paleontology. We don't have a lot of, any of the museums I've worked at, we haven't had a lot of natural history collections or specimens to work with, but I still find other ways. Now that we live in a Netflix culture, I get my fill of dinosaur programs. I got to come back to EKU back in 2015 and do an exhibition for the library on fashion. And so I got to go through the collections of fashion that pretty much no one has seen before, other than a few select people, and also including dresses from the Elmwood estate as well. And so it was a neat moment to kind of come back 10 years later, and it was a very proud moment to see that exhibition come to fruition and get to educate people on those kind of hidden treasures that EKU has that no one knows about. To educate people about the apparel design program, because it's such a great program, but it is a small program. And I know even when I attended EKU and was in that program, you would get people all the time, students, saying, "Oh, I didn't know we had fashion design." And so it was neat to show them that there is that program. It's neat to show them that EKU has a history beyond the buildings, beyond the stuff that you walk by every day, but they have hidden history. And I hope that students can take away that appreciation for that hidden history. You know, I'm a firm believer that history isn't just one point, but it's a moving timeline. And the things that I came away with at EKU are things that I took with me throughout my life and shaped my career. And I think being open to those new ideas and those new paths was something that was pivotal to me, because I came here for fashion design, knew I was going to go to New York and I was going to be a designer, and now I work with fashion history. I'm still in the field, I'm still kind of doing that, but it was not something that I thought of as a career, and I wouldn't have known that without being here at Eastern.
Okay.